Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Hope everyone had a nice holiday and all that sort of good stuff. The good things about the holidays is interestingly enough, all of our children come home. And I want to acknowledge that right now. I see a lot of our young people here. And my daughter Jamie, who I get to see once or twice a year. And I said, wait a minute. So, it's really great to have all of our young people here. It's one of those things I often think about some of my frustrations, and I want to sort of share that with you this morning a little bit. Where's the first page? Where's my cute little tree that I found? I clicked it? Okay. Put that thing down. Don't click. And I want to sort of talk about it. When I became a believer back in the early 80s and got involved in the Messianic Jewish movement, we all had this vision of this outbreak of salvation among the Jewish people, and that God was calling us back in light of all these prophecies, and one of them that we're going to look at today from Ezekiel. And so I've been involved in it now for 25 or 30 years, and it's not quite exactly what I thought it was going to be. And sometimes that leads to frustration on my part, why aren't more of our people responding to the message of Messiah Yeshua? It should have been epidemic. It should have gone viral, the whole thing. And by now, and maybe we just don't tweet enough or something like that. I don't have Twitter. I need to get a Twitter account so I can get 6 or 8 followers. You know what I mean, something like that. And part of it is simply that life goes on and people move along and they go on with their lives. I'm looking at all of our young people, and there are a lot of them are in different places in the world right now, and they're different places in our country. And maybe that says something about Connecticut. I don't know, but but whatever it is, it just hasn't happened the way I envisioned it. So I want to share some of that little frustration with you, but also a hope for the future. And it's very much based on the story of Joseph. Because one can only imagine that when Joseph was in the midst of all that he was doing, how does he foresee the end until the end comes? You know what I'm saying? When we're in the middle of something, it's hard to see beyond our own horizon. And yet one day, we move on, we move. And ultimately, hopefully, we get to see beyond the horizon that is established for us at this time. And so I have this lovely picture of a tree, and I believe this, remember that song, One Day We'll Be Together. I'm dating myself, what can I tell you? One day we will. So I want to share something with you, this first statement. Now there's going to be some text up there on the thing, but I want to share some of this with you. Years ago, we have the Union of Messianic Jewish Congregations drafted a statement to define Messianic Judaism for ourselves. And the reason we did it was because everybody else was doing it. Everybody was doing it. You pick up a newspaper, or you pick up some Christian magazine, or you pick up some kind of a Jewish paper, and everybody was telling us what Messianic Jews were, so we decided we would decide for ourselves what we were. And it took a lot of doing, but we did it. Believe it or not, it took a lot of doing. And this is what we came up with. This is only a part of this statement, but this is the one I want to share with you here. The Union of Messianic Jewish Congregations envisions Messianic Judaism as a movement of Jewish congregations and groups committed to Yeshua, the Messiah, that embraced the covenantal responsibility of Jewish life and identity, rooted in Torah, expressed in tradition, and renewed and applied in the context of the new covenant. That's the basic part of what we are. We added to it that Messianic Jewish groups may also include those from non-Jewish backgrounds who have a confirmed call to participate fully in the life and destiny of the Jewish people. So, we're committed to these things in the way in which we develop our congregations and institutions. That first part of being a Jewish expression of faith in Messiah Yeshua for Jewish people. And we really expected, I know I did, expected people like, okay, fine, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense, and start busting down doors and, and running and rushing in. And in a lot of ways, this just hasn't happened for whatever reason. And so you get a little frustrated about it and feel a little bit sad. But I remember, I'm looking at all of these young people today, I'm thinking about all of my victories this morning. And that there is a hope for the future. It may not be realized the way I envisioned it. It may not happen precisely the way I want it. But that there is a hope for the future. You guys, you young people, you're the hope of the future. Of the message of Messiah Yeshua among our people. Not me. I'm about finished with doing my thing. But there is still a hope for the future. And so I'm thinking about Joseph this week. I was thinking about Joseph. That's the Torah portion that we have. And Joseph, we all know the story of Joseph, and you heard some of it today. He went off into the world. And he went into a strange world, and I bet you young folks, you're in a different world than the one you grew up in. The one that your mother and your father made for you, the one that hopefully this congregation contributed to. And now you have to defend your ideas. You have to think about what you believe and what you don't. You have to make choices that may be difficult. And maybe, like me, you can't see it all. You can envision the whole thing all together. You can only hope for what you think. Well, this is our goal. I don't think we've quite reached it yet. We're on our way. And hopefully God will bless more of it. But let's take a look at this, because for a season, we're in exile, but I think with a purpose. And let me tell you what I think about the exile. Just like Joseph, we have been sent off into the world. We get sent off into the world. And you know what? Just like his brothers, we're not acceptable either. It still remains that way. It's really stunning. It's getting better. Let me just tell you that the relationship between the Messianic Jewish community and the traditional community is getting better in a lot of places. There are a lot of really good things happening. Maybe you not see it in your own life, I don't know, but there's more to my little world than me. And all over the world. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we had dinner with a top Jewish scholar, and he was very cool about it, and I got to talk to him about why he doesn't believe in Messiah, and he was all very cool about it. And he spoke at one of the synagogues in Boston, and it was great. It was just fabulous, So that would not have happened 10 years ago. He would not even have shown his face, and he's not the first one to do so. And there are, just this a couple of weeks ago, a young couple that's occasionally coming here had their son had a bris and a moil from the more traditional community, although she was Reform moil. Did the service knowing we were Messianic and allowing me to participate in the service, and it was just great. And that's another thing that wouldn't have happened very long ago. So, things are changing, but we remain, to a certain extent, in exile, just like Joseph did in his time. He had to go into a foreign land. He had to dress in a foreign way. He got a foreign name. He even got a foreign name, a different name. Just like Messiah Yeshua, Jesus, I know there are many of you who don't mind that name. It's not that I mind the name, it just doesn't mean anything when his true name means everything. It's why we insist on the use of Yeshua, not because we think there's something wrong with Jesus. Nothing wrong with Jesus, it just doesn't mean anything in any language. But his name means everything in Hebrew. That's why we insist. So, it's just like him. He had to take a foreign name, looks like a foreigner, and to a certain extent so do we. But perhaps it's with a purpose that maybe we've been sent ahead to forge those relationships with the body of Messiah, with the rest of the world, that need to be made in order for Israel to be made whole. Is that possible? I sometimes think so. I hope so. So he said this, right? This is the portion after the one that we just read. After Judah pleads with his brother. This is what happened. It says, then Joseph said to his brothers, come forward to me. And when they came forward, he said, I'm your brother Joseph, he whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sold me hither. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. It wasn't for no purpose at all. There was a purpose in my exile, in my punishment, in my feeling like I was no longer a part of you, that I might never see you again. There was a real purpose in it all. And one day it will be realized. Look, it's now 2 years that there have been a famine in the land, and there's still 5 to come. There won't be any yield from the ground. God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival on the earth. Listen, I think we, of the remnant of Israel, have a real purpose for the survival of our people, for the spiritual survival. So I'm going to tell it to you right now. And you don't have to believe me if you don't want to, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway, because I have the big thingy. Why has God raised up a remnant in this age? In this age. See, listen, let me tell you, I believe in something called the remnant. The remnant is this: God has always preserved a mere remnant of his people who are faithful, among the faithful. And for their sake, all of Israel is sanctified. For their sake, all of Israel remains in covenant relationship with God. And we are that remnant. Every Jew in this room is a remnant part. And those who have joined yourself to us, you assist us, you help us to maintain the life of the remnant in this age so that Israel might be preserved. And the day will come, according to Paul's gospel, when all Israel will be saved. So we're saved for a purpose, and even though it feels like exile, alone, or maybe young people feeling like your faith is challenged, you're going off to school or to work, and the people there don't believe what you believe, they don't think like you think. They will challenge every thought in your mind with all kinds of lovely logic. It makes no sense at all if you think it through. Well, that exile has a purpose: the salvation of our people. So in exile with a purpose, but one day we'll be together again. That's a promise. Remember what Paul said: in that day, all Israel will be saved, when I take away their sins. And so, in our Haftorah portion, it says, thus said the Lord God, I'm going to take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel associated with him, and I'll place the stick of Judah upon it and make them into one stick. They'll all be joined together. Boy, has there been a lot of mishigas placed on this particular verse in the world. I don't know, some of you may know some of it, some of this one law theology and the notion of Ephraimites and all this sort of thing. If you don't know about it, consider yourself blessed. If you know about it, it's mishigas. All right? Clearly what's going on here is that all Israel is being brought together again. And nothing else there, folks. Don't make it up. But I will say this. We of the remnant will be brought together with our brothers into one stick in that day. That's a promise from God. And we have to hold on to that promise. Hold on to what we are supposed to be, fulfilling our destiny as a Messianic community, being the remnant of God for the sake of our people. Only then can we hope to come together in one thing. And it goes on. And then in that day, the Messiah will be king. Then the Messiah will be king. This is the end of that same Haftorah, the portion that was read for us today. It says, my servant David shall be king over them. There shall be one shepherd over them all. One. You see, let me tell you this. Messiah Yeshua is the King of the Jews. It doesn't matter whether we believe in it or not. He is, and he will always be. There shall be one shepherd over them all. They shall follow my rules and faithfully obey my laws, and they shall remain in the land which I gave to my servant Jacob and in which your fathers dwelt. God is going to bring us all back together. Listen, since I've been a believer, people have been trying to get me to go to live in Israel. And some of us have gone. But I'll go when the Messiah tells me it's time. But one day we will all be there. As long as he gets me that place on the Mediterranean that I was looking for. So, okay. So, he tells me, my servant Jacob, in which your fathers dwelt, they and their children's children shall dwell there forever, with my servant David as their prince for all time. And so we can look forward to a time when this will be fulfilled. This is God's will for us. This is our hope. This is why I can't get too frustrated. And this is why you young people especially, you have to pay heed to this. Because this may take some time. Don't expect it to happen tomorrow. I wish it would. But may God make it happen in your days. May you see the day when all of Israel will come to know him. But it won't happen unless you do something about it. If you abandon it, if you leave it for nothing, all the effort that was made all this time will mean very little. So you can't give up the vision. You can't give up the hope. You got to keep on keeping on as long as it takes until the Messiah returns. Because we have the promise. Now all we need is the guts to stick it out. So I want to just pray for our young people today. I'm really feeling it today, seeing all of them here. See, we often wonder in this congregation, the congregation is getting older. Well, if all you guys had just gone to school around here, maybe it would have been different. We did do enough to, do enough of that baby making to populate the joint. So, but I want to just pray for them, all of them, as we end our service. I want to ask some of the men to help me with the Lord's Supper. So let's pray. Lord, I want to indeed pray for the fulfillment of your promise to us, that one day we would be together, that you would take the sticks of Judah and Ephraim and bind them together into one. And I pray also for our young people, wherever they're going, and all their adventures and all the things that they're doing, in living out their own promise of of their lives, that they would just recognize that they too are part of the promise. The world has many temptations, many things to offer, but none will be greater, O God, than the promise that you have given to us. So I pray for them that you would protect and guard their hearts, keep them safe from all harm. Allow them, Lord, to be your voice in the world, and may they have the desire to be that voice until the time when our Messiah returns and speaks clearly himself. Congregation, it's our custom to, on the last Shabbat of the month, to share Messiah Yeshua's supper together. I'm glad we can do it this week. So, it's our way of doing is to stand. I want us all to remember that as we partake of Messiah's meal, that we are pledging ourselves to be part of him, and that we share in the hope of his calling. And we share in the responsibility that he has given to us to bring salvation to the world.